Would you please now help me welcome to the stage Nancy Crow, the 2019 James Renwick Alliance Master of the Medium in Fiber.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a description of who I am first. Can you hear me okay? I'm an artist. I am 75 years old. I'm the youngest of 8, strongly opinionated, scrappy, determined, focused, hardworking, driven, a perfectionist, but oh boy, a daydreamer, obsessive, used to failure, a tough teacher. I hate being short. I wear a uniform, so I am not getting dressed up for tonight. I love solitude. My medium is quilt making. I love machine piecing. I love the engineering of parts to parts. I am a colorist. I love fabric. I love dyeing it. I love cutting it up. I work improvisationally. I freehand cut all elements. I believe I am drawing when I swing my arm using my rotary cutter. I think of my work as drawings. I also create monoprints and screen prints. I'm starting with the year 1979. I'll be honest and tell you that I just could not take the time out of my life to take all my film images of my work and make them digital. So, da-da, you see one. 1979 was a pivotal year for me because I had struggled from 1974 to 1979. How do I make quilts that are my own, that are in my own voice? And I started out by, of course, reading books. At that time, there weren't very many, looking at old traditional patterns, trying to put them into my voice. Well, in 1979, Paul Smith loved this piece, and he put it in the front window of the American Craft Museum in New York City, and my career took off. 1979 was also the year we moved to a farm. I was 36 years old, was so wanting to move to a farm, thinking it was the most romantic thing that you could think of. And then reality set in when I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have any friends anymore. They're not here. I have to learn to live with nature. I have to learn to live back this long 1/4 mile lane. But today, 40 years later, I am saying to all of you that once I go up this lane and am closed by those big red oaks I planted on either side, all of a sudden it opens up into my environment, and I love it. This is my first hardback that covered my work from 1972 to 1988. And then the catalog for my show at the American Craft Museum, covering work from 1989 to 1992. My solo show at the Renwick, which then went on to Germany, so the catalog is in both English and German. And then, wow, a change in my life. The year 2000, we basically opened up this wonderful teaching facility on our farm. This is a huge German timber frame barn that belonged to our neighbors, who happened to call up one day and say, you want it, get it, because it's coming down. So my husband and my 2 sons, all of whom are here in the audience, were at a time in their lives when they could move this barn and rebuild it. it sat on the farm, it sat on the ground, on big boulders. So we first had to develop an earthen hill and then pour the concrete walls so the barn could be put up on top of the walls. So for this teaching facility, I could have wet rooms downstairs and dry room upstairs. I had been a freelance teacher for 20 years, and let me tell you, it's not fun. But quilt making could not be part of college and university art departments, because I was told in graduate school, applique, stitching, quilt making, stupid, not intelligent enough. So off I went on a freelance career trying to earn income to buy things for my own studio work. And now I have my own teaching facility that I can have it the way I want it, which means big walls for students to work on, ergonomic chairs, great lighting, natural lighting. And then, because I now have my own teaching facility on my farm, and now today we're being slammed, we can't even take all the people who want to come and learn there. Over these last 20 years, I've been able to develop what I would call an in-depth coursework in figure ground, classical figure ground composition, because what I saw in quilt making is that so many quilt makers did not understand it. So little by little, I worked and worked, and because often the same students would be coming back, I could push them to a much higher level. When I said I was a tough teacher, I'm a tough teacher. So I taught people to draw, to with black fabric, to lay out their compositions on the wall, and then how to go back into color. On May 2014, we start my new big studio. I began saving money when I was 52 years old. Boy, that money I put away for that studio, that money did not get touched. When I hit age 68, I said, this is it. If I don't get this studio built, it is not going to happen. And I had a hard time finding someone who could build a studio for my amount of money that I had saved. And one of the things that we did is we attached it to the end of the existing studios, which were other timber frame barns that my husband had moved and renovated, helped renovate along with a carpenter. This is a big addition, 60 feet by 36 feet. So this is what it looks like now, and I have the first floor and the second floor. The second floor is for storing work. The bump out is where I work on all my teaching materials. This is my lower space that is 50 feet by 36 feet. You can see it's already maxed out. I have a hard problem not maxing everything out. You notice I have tons of tables. I have a very good dye studio down in the basement. I've kept very good records over probably around close to 30 years of all my colors that I dye. I think it's important to be in charge of my own colors that I use. Here they are laid out, some of them. Unlike a painter, we can't change a color just because we feel like stroking over what we don't like. We have to have the colors already dyed at hand, ready to be cut up. This was the next big hardback covering my work from 1988 to 2005. It was this book to me is just absolutely filled to the max with seed ideas. I would say I'm a person who, on one hand, gets bored, gets impatient, and I realized looking back that I have these wonderful seed ideas that I didn't develop well enough. I didn't take them somewhere. So I'm going to just show you 3 pieces from this period. I kind of veered from, I wouldn't say I ever do really spare work, but to really complex work. I love complexity. And of course, I love color. And then moving up into the later 2007s, I will also admit that all this renovation of timber frame barns on our farm, I got to go a little faster, according to Andrea. We had lots of boards laying on piles, so these three pieces kind of are about that. I went through a period of wanting to do screen printing, rented a space in Australia with a friend. Those are some of my images that I blew up for screens. Needed an assistant to pull these great big prints, a piece from that time. Went on to doing monoprinting. These are all things that I was interested in working on. I had a little bit of instruction in monoprinting and then became self-taught, working on massively large monoprints on fabric. My dear darling husband was the person who helped pull these. I would tell you that the imagery is about anxiety. I have lots of anxiety. This is major anxiety. So this is a wall of some of my over 250 monoprints I've made. Another version of the boards overlapping from the barns. And then a monoprint that's done with very, very fine markings in which I had to develop layers and layers of groundwork before I came back in with the big tools and worked on the larger strokes. Last year I was fortunate to have an exhibition in England of 75 of the prints, and I'm standing in the hall there with Pauline Burbage, who's one of our great quilt makers who lives in Scotland. And then back to strip piecing, which is machine piecing, which is cutting lines, cutting strips. This is, again, swinging my arm. I happen to believe that how you swing your arm, just like you draw, that is who you are. And these are part of, sorry, I'm getting emotional. Part of a group I'm working on. These are not finished in this picture. But again, just think always about line. I'm working with line. I love line. And then going on to something fairly severe, this is line, and again the boards, the slats, the shape of the slats. These are all very large pieces, giving you an idea of, let's say, 8 feet by 8 feet, 7 feet by 7 feet. This is a little bit about my working method, but not much, because then here's the finished piece before it got quilted. And then ending with the parts and pieces I made to do this color studies that I've been working on, one of which will be up for auction tonight. And these will feed into large pieces. And this is what I do when I get anxious. I don't drink, I don't take drugs, but I sure bake pies.